Train service from Ukraine to Crimea will be running on time because Ukraine is selling all of its land to the IMF, and Russia has soured relations with the West because of, you guessed it, Ukraine. But this is StopFake, the place where we've been debunking this kind of Russian disinformation for 5 years now. So let's get to it. A favorite Kremlin disinformation trope about Ukraine concerns land, specifically agricultural land, which according to Russian media, Ukraine will be selling in exchange for another billion-dollar tranche from the International Monetary Fund. A recent article in the Russian Defense Ministry website Zvezda claims that Ukraine's new government is happy to make land a commodity to be sold to Western partners in exchange for another $1 billion from the IMF. The IMF has often addressed the need for land reform in Ukraine, but back in 2017, the requirement for land reform was postponed. The January 2019 IMF Ukraine country report noted that land reform is a topic of interest and calls it an opportunity that could fundamentally transform Ukraine's economy. During a conference on the revival of Ukraine's rural areas, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the land reform model the government plans to unveil only allows Ukrainian citizens or Ukrainian companies to buy or sell land. Zelensky said, quote, "Horror stories about the Chinese, Arabs, or aliens who will take away our land are nonsense. Land is the property of our citizens." Look, the reality is this. Ukraine's Ministry for Economic Development, Trade and Agriculture has published a draft law aimed at opening up the country's land market in 2020. The law has an explanatory note that lays out who will be able to obtain agricultural land: citizens of Ukraine, regional communities, the state, Ukrainian legal entities, and foreign citizens or stateless persons in cases where land is acquired through inheritance. According to RT, relations between Russia and the West have worsened because of Ukraine, where a coup has brought on a civil war. The article regurgitates various tried and true Kremlin tropes that Western countries are coming around to Russia's side, that the Russia-sanctioned front is weakening, and that the reason for worsening relations with the West is Ukraine, where the 2014 coup led to a civil war. RT refuses to consider the idea that maybe Russia's annexing Crimea and fomenting a war in eastern Ukraine is the reason why relations with the West are deteriorating. Russia's like a schoolyard bully, refusing to take responsibility for his own actions. And portraying the 2013-2014 Euromaidan protest as a coup is a classic Kremlin disinformation. Look, it's no secret to anyone, maybe other than the Russians, that the Donbas conflict is not an internal conflict, but a war that Russia is waging against Ukraine. International and Ukrainian organizations have published copious amounts of evidence about the presence of Russian troops and command officers in the Donbas, and StopFake has also debunked Russian civil war claims. Since 2014, the United States, member states of the European Union, and a number of other countries have introduced sanctions against Russia, sanctions which were enacted in response to Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea and Russia's continued efforts to destabilize Ukraine. Citing an interview with Ukraine's Minister for Infrastructure, Russian and Ukrainian media reported this week that Kyiv intends to resume train service to Crimea. But in fact, the minister did not say anything of the kind and has personally debunked the fake that irresponsible media disseminated without doing some elementary fact-checking. Unfortunately, journalists seriously distorted Minister Vladislav Krikly's interview with Radio Liberty. Russia's RIA Novosti went even further, claiming that Ukrainian citizens are demanding train service to Crimea be restored, and eventually Ukraine will have to satisfy these demands. And then RIA makes the claim that this hasn't happened yet because of political ambitions. Responding to a question about legal passenger transports to and from the administrative border with Crimea and the need for bus service to and from checkpoints, Minister Krikly explained that such transports will be developed in the near future. He never once mentioned resuming direct train service with Crimea. In a follow-up Facebook post, Minister Krikly explained that Ukrainian carriers will ferry Ukrainian customers across Ukraine. The new transportation plan does not foresee resuming any direct flights or train service to Crimea. That's it for this week. You can find much more dissected disinformation on the StopFake website, stopfake.org. Be vigilant, look out for fakes, and if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.